We got John Heathay from Texas, a theist. What do you got for us, John?
Hey, so I got something, hopefully that's new. I don't think it's going to convince anyone, but I'm hoping that you can help me sort of think through it more critically because I cannot find anybody else talking about it, and I've looked.
Okay, what do you got?
So, just to kind of like land the plane first, I have an argument for divine hiddenness. So the idea is that God, isn't revealed in like a book or an empty tomb or anything like that, but He's like hiding out for some reason, and so like that's kind of why there's no. I think we'd probably agree. There's not sort of great evidence for God. Evidence is mixed at best, and so that's kind of what I want to talk to you about.
All right, well,
Cool.
lay it on us then.
Sure. So where we're going is going to go through something close to the dark forest hypothesis. If you've ever heard of that.
I don't think I
know.
have, but just in case the audience, anyway.
Yeah, go ahead and lay it out, John.
Yeah. So the way that I think about this is I'm, looking around at the world, same as you, and there's a food chain, right? We got big fish eating little fish. And
Okay.
my observation is that this food chain seems to have a kind of structure to it. In other words, you got like a small number of apex predators on top, and then they're eating more and more, animals as you kind of move down this pyramid. And so you got sort of a lot of like, prey on the bottom. That sound about right to you? Like, is that kind of your intuition?
Yeah, and just so everyone, if anyone in the audience is unclear on dark forest, it's sort of an answer to the Fermi paradox, which says like, if intelligent life exists in the universe outside of Earth, how come we haven't heard from them? The dark forest is sort of an answer that says like, oh, well, maybe it's because there are predators out in the apex predators out in the cosmos, and the other intelligences that are aware of them just know what they know well enough to be quiet. And we're a stupid species that's making a lot of noise and sending radio frequencies out there, and we shouldn't be. But that's dark forest. So you're talking about sort of an ecosystem here with, a food chain basically, and dark forest just kind of expands that out to like the size of the cosmos.
Yeah. So kind of the thing that I am kind of looking at or confused about is that it seems to me very unlikely that I would just like happen to be the apex predator. Like that seems kind of weird. Kind of seems like we have, one of those on this planet and, 10 million or so species that aren't on this planet. I think that's probably overstating the case by quite a bit, but like it does seem sort of unlikely that I would kind of wake up and, look up and find nobody trying to eat me. That's not normal on Earth.
Okay.
So you're saying you're using that as a justification to accept the dark forest. What is it? It's not paradox. It's dark forest.
Hypothesis.
Dark forest theory or hypothesis. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's your basis for it, is that we aren't being attacked, basically?
Yeah. So I think there are several options. I think like the dark forest hypothesis is like one option. But kind of like where I'm going with the food chain argument is that I think, like there's reason to question our observational evidence that we're not being eaten because it seems kind of likely that we would be. Like that seems kind of like,
that makes sense.
state.
But think about it this way. An earthworm who is just born and who is not coming to the surface, or maybe just a bacteria or whatever, is not being eaten.
Yeah.
Not everything is prey to something else.
Sure.
So maybe we're just so far down a hole or down in the ocean or whatever, proverbially, that we're just not on anything's radar.
Yeah, I think that's completely possible. I guess kind of where I'm going with this is it seems to me like, if you're saying like there may be even more things above us than I, would naturally think, like those kind of seem more likely to be like deity candidates to me. Like they kind of seem to meet, you think about a deities, people just would describe them as powerful or like working in, strange ways that we don't understand. That kind of seems like it kind of meets a lot of the criteria.
Also, I'm curious, John, like, why is it hard or unlikely for you to accept humans as the potential apex predators of this planet? Like is that why is that a problem to say, like, oh, I guess there's nothing really bigger than us? I mean, there are bigger things than us that could absolutely eat us and fuck us up if we got in a tangle with them. I definitely wouldn't want to fight a bear, but in general, as a species, like, we seem to be the species that technologically has kind of dominated in terms of, like, if we collectively had to fight any other species on the planet, we would probably win. But why is that? Like, why is that so? Well, I guess the question is, like, why is that hard to accept? Like, somebody's got to be at the top of the spectrum, right?
Yeah, I agree. Somebody's got to be at the top of the spectrum. That makes total sense. I think kind of where I'm going with this is that I'm sort of surprised that it's me. Like, I might like look back in history and think, like, I could have been born like as a Neanderthal, for example. And like, I think they were hunted by Homo sapiens, or at least that's my understanding. And like, I think that, if I sort of spawned into that existence, I would know that. Like, I would have experiences that, I can explain that way. And so I think I'm just kind of surprised that, it doesn't seem to be the case. Obviously somebody's got to be the apex predator, but why is it me? That seems unusual.
Well,
why though? That's my question, is like, why? I just don't know, like, why does it seem weird to you that it's you?
Why does it seem weird to me that it's me?
Or that it's humanity? That it's, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess, so I'm kind of thinking of this in like a Monte Carlo method kind of way, where I'm kind of like, let's say that I, like randomly spawn into, some experience. It seems to me like, it's just like the chances are unlikely to spawn into that one. Like, the chances are more likely for me to spawn into some other experience than the one that I have.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm looking at there. I think there are a lot of like.
I get it. I get it. It's weird to be on an Earth with this many organisms and be the only one that are like, be a part of the only species that's like building space rockets and stuff. Like, it's weird. It is weird to be like, we're the only species that are doing the thing that we're doing right now. Like 3 people who are relative strangers talking on microphones over like frequencies that are sent through the air, and we're like talking about it's weird. Like, we're the only ones doing it. I agree, it's weird. I'm sort of waiting for the part of like how this gets to an argument that goes for the hidden God problem.
Yeah, so I think there are a bunch of different ways to explain why it is that apparently there's nothing coming to eat us, but it seems to me like there really ought to be. Like, there really should be. Like, the odds are kind of not in our favor. The dark forest hypothesis is one. So like, that's the idea that everybody's like knows better than to announce their presence, because either they're going to get eaten by something else, or they're trying to hunt something and they don't want their presence to be known. And so like, I think that's one. I also think it just seems extremely likely to me that if it is the case that there's like an entire sort of metaphorical ocean of water above us with like bigger fish, that we might not be adequately prepared to like sense them in terms of our like evolutionary development. Like, there's no particular reason to think like we're prepared for like threats on Earth. Like, we're prepared for threats that sort of present in ways that like you'd see on National Geographic. I don't know if we're necessarily. I see no reason to think that we would have any senses that would detect, or that sort of the ways that we would think about finding predators would apply to a situation that natural selection is not prepared us for.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, John. Like, I get it. Like, I don't get that there's like no reason why we would have any way of detecting some kind of being that is so far up the cosmological food chain that we can't even see, that some kind of giant apex predator that's hiding itself, that's hunting out there in the cosmos. I don't, I get it. I still am just like, why is it God? Why is it like the magical divine creator of the universe that you think this hypothesis or that this idea points to? Like, I'm still waiting for that. Like, how did we get to God being a part of this?
Yeah, great question. So I'm actually a polytheist. And so I would sort of tend to think that some of these beings out there sort of meet the criteria that we would traditionally ascribe to deities, right? That, they seem, powerful. They seem kind of beyond our imagination or understanding. And so like, if they're out there, like, I think they kind of meet the criteria or, probably are likely to. I think the word deity is sort of a pre-scientific concept. And I think that if we like fairly apply it to, post-scientific concepts, it'd be fair to describe, other things out there as deities.
So it was, and I'm not trying to be like reductive or dismissive, sure. I promise. But is it fair to characterize what you're saying here as like, would you characterize human beings as being deities in relation to bacteria? Is the definition that satisfies the term deity for you as a polytheist just anything that is so far advanced in its technological evolution from another species that it appears to be supernaturally powerful? Is that the definition? And in which case, like, would you consider humans the gods of organisms that live on Earth that we are so far advanced from? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I think the answer to your question is yes. I think I would mostly agree with that. Kind of the sort of the way I would distinguish it from that would be that I think like the word deity is kind of culturally constructed. I think that it is sort of based in, we use language and like bacteria don't. But presumably if they did, have linguistic faculties, like they would probably describe us in similar ways relative to things larger than us in the cosmos.
Okay, so then, but like, do you agree with them? Like, if they did define us as deities, would you agree? Would you say they're correct? We are gods.
Yeah, I think like relative to their perspective, yeah.
Well, we aren't gods, right?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like we're not deities. I'm sure that you probably, like me, have a kind of a logical, more rational concept of who and what human beings are. We're not deities. We're just, we're mammals. So we're here, we're hanging out, doing our thing. There's nothing like super special about us as humans. We're not, I guess it would depend on what you mean, but when you say deity, right?
Yeah. I think that's partly what I'm like trying to explore. And like, this was one of my ideas about how the conversation would go, that it would kind of break down on like, does this qualify as a deity or not? I think that's a fair criticism. I guess kind of my, a place where I've gotten stuck on this is I've never found like a robust definition of a deity. It's kind of like a slippery concept. And I think, the best definition that I have found is sort of something that is, it's sort of along the Arthur C. Clarke, like, sufficient technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah.
Like it kind of seems like maybe there's some amount, you can get above us that like puts you over that threshold, and it's kind of subjective, like where you draw that line.
That makes sense. I think that
I don't fucking know how this thing works. Like I don't get it. Doesn't matter if somebody spent they could spend a whole week trying to explain to me how every single I'm just like, yeah, sure. I just go like, yeah, okay. it just holds all that stuff in there. Okay.
Yeah. I figured our modern conception or our modern, like our colloquial definition or whatever of deity is a being that sparked the universe into existence. But I understand that's very different from what like a lot of other, certainly older traditional cultures meant when they said deity. So I guess in like the most traditional, oldest sense, I suppose I could say that we are deities in the sense that we're like impressive as a species, but we're not deities in like the modern understanding of we're supernatural or powerful in some special, unique way or whatever, right?
So, like, I actually don't know if we're powerful in some special, unique way. We seem to have much larger brains, so that seems sort of interesting. But I don't know. I could be convinced.
I gotta say, I like the concept of like beings that are far more advanced than us, that are like way more up the technological chain, having a conversation somewhere that's similar to this one right now, where they're like, "Are we gods?" They're like, some of them are like, "Nah." They're like, "No, we're just like, interdimensional travelers." That they're like, but like, no, we're just doing the thing. We're just chilling. Like, I think that's it's just funny.
I guess, kind of like my observation to like widen this conversation out a little bit, and like, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of like my general understanding of most atheists is they kind of, look at the world to find evidence for God, and they kind of, reject enough, God claims, and they're like, okay, there's not one. Does that sound right?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that a lot of it, well, at least for me, I would just say that like I usually just use, again, we talked about hard solipsism earlier in the call, where it's like I can't actually definitively know anything, and I don't really bother with that. But like I just go off of like what I am able to observe given the faculties that I find myself with. And my typical just sort of default position is like I don't accept any extravagant or supernatural claims for which there has not been sufficient evidence demonstrated. And that's just sort of the default position. And so it's like, it's not that I like definitively say these claims can never be undone. It's sort of it's another question that like we ask people on this show all the time. We'll ask people, theists will call in and we'll say, is there anything we could say that would change your mind? And they often tell us no. And the difference is with us, it's like, there is something you could do to change our mind. You could offer us some kind of substantive evidence. Some kind of evidential claim that we can actually test and observe that would give us a sufficient reason to change our default position. But until then, it's not necessarily that. I think a lot of people have this idea that atheists sort of like short-sightedly or arrogantly look at the world and go, well, I don't see this God you claim, therefore I'm sure it doesn't exist. It's like, I'm just taking a default position of like, I'm not going to believe in something that there is absolutely no evidence for until I get that evidence. And I'm not saying that evidence for sure doesn't exist. I'm just saying it has yet to be demonstrated in a way that I find satisfactory.
Absolutely. So like, I think the reason, and I like agree with everything you said, I think the reason that I'm kind of wandering in this direction is that one thing, that I observe, I have listened to a lot of these shows, and I hear a lot of theist callers come in and say things, and it seems to me that a lot of them kind of cluster into a very narrow range of what theism might be. And so, if we're interested in like more seriously like evaluating the question, it kind of seems to me like maybe a much broader range of ideas than like happen to have been historically generated so far, might be relevant to that question. And so. I'm definitely hearing you on the whole, like, maybe this doesn't like qualify as a God in your mind, but like, I think that question like deserves its day, even though it's not like a traditional, usually we know exactly what a deity is in these conversations. And I think there are a lot of God claims where it's kind of unclear, like, does this qualify or not? Or I think that's an important question.
Yeah. And of course, God, as defined in modern America, has very specific meaning and connotation or whatever. And in that sense, there, as far as I can tell, I'm literally betting my life on it. There is no God. So anyway, if you're using it in a way that I'm not, then we can talk, of course. But yeah.
Yeah, I would be interested in how your perspective, because it is interesting. Just because we do, you're right. We do these shows a lot, and we talk about a lot of people who have a definition of that word that is usually in underneath some kind of homogenous umbrella of usage. And this is a little bit of a novelty for me. So just out of curiosity, the question for the show is, why is your God, or in this case, God's polytheism, why are your gods worthy of belief? Is there a reason why you think we should accept your framework? Why it would be good for us to do that?
Yeah, I think, if humanity is in some kind of danger of being eaten, maybe we should do something about that, or we should investigate that, or, try to get a plan together of some kind, I think we should explore that. So that would be the reason.
Okay. Yeah, again, it sounds like your view of God is very different from the way that I view God. If you're worried that it's like aliens that are going to come eat us or whatever, as you were kind of laying out, I guess I could say that I would like to be sure that doesn't happen as well. And we have a program called SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial something intelligence, maybe. And they're doing that job, so they can sit over there and do it, and I will appreciate it from afar.
They are. They have a very limited number of telescope hours, and so that's a major problem. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway,
I mean, cool. I guess I would agree then, John, that it's as much as we can, to the best of our capability, it's good to keep an antenna up for potential extraterrestrial super intelligences that might want to come and eat us. But you're correct. That's not typically what the thrust of this show is. We are typically trying to talk to people who have a supernatural belief in some kind of universe creating or designing deity that dictates some kind of universal morality over humanity. And it doesn't sound like that's the framework that you operate with, but I definitely found this interesting. Is there anything else you want to say before we move on?
I mean, I think that just about covers it. I mean, I do sort of think that meets the supernatural definitions, but I don't think that it provides a particular moral framework for humans. So that would kind of be where I would think.
Well, it's interesting. Like we said, I found it super interesting. So I really appreciate the call.
No problem.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Yeah.
Cool.
Those types of calls are very interesting. And I appreciate you staying on top of, the time and everything, because I'm really bad at like switching to the next caller. So anyway,
I'm just, listen, I am having fun just thinking about the idea of like interdimensional, wormhole traveling species somewhere having conversations where they're like, we're not gods. And it's like, well, but if you think about the definition of the word God, it could just mean anything that's more, like just some way, like, having the exact same conversation. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, if we're going to fully redefine the colloquial, typical, understanding of what we mean when we're talking about God on this show, then we're going to have an entirely different conversation, which I don't know, for me is kind of fun sometimes because it just gives us a break from
yelling,
from the typical.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right.
Hey, if you liked this video, why don't you click that like button?
And if you didn't
That's
like
what
it,
you would say.
subscribe.
Okay.
You didn't give me a chance.
There was such a long pause.
What are you on speed or something? I barely had a
Let's
chance.
try again. Hey, I hope you liked. Hey, I hope you. Hey there. I hope you liked that clip. Hey, I hope you liked that clipper just now. The one that you just watched with your eyes. If you did like it, why don't you click that like button?
And if you didn't like it, tell Jimmy to go fuck himself.
Hey, I hope you liked that clip right now. If you did like it, why don't you hit that like button?
And if you didn't like it, go ahead and subscribe anyway.